I'm Chad Robertson. I am the co-founder and CEO at Regenize. And Regenize really is a recycling solution based in Cape Town. And our mission is to make recycling accessible, inclusive, and rewarding. So I'll start off with this little quote by Greta Thunberg. The climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is wake up and change. Which I think is quite profound because, we know all these stats and all we have to do is just make the change. And that is what we're about here at Regenize. Our mission is to develop services that allows people to reduce, reuse, and recycle using AIR principles. And that's focused on accessible, inclusive, and rewarding. So before I get into what we do, let me just paint some context as to how our industry looks. So in South Africa, we have high processing rates. What that means is all the material that we're recycling gets processed and turned into new materials. Some as high as first world countries, if not higher than some. And on the right, you can see our household separation rates, which is quite low. On average, we have about 7.5% of South Africans recycling. So you have to ask yourself this question: how is it possible that we have high processing rates, yet such low separation rates? And it's thanks to these guys. They're known as waste pickers, reclaimers, or even here in Cape Town, we call them scullers. So they go about with different names, and they're really responsible for this big gap that we don't see. They're responsible for collecting up to 90% of all the paper and packaging waste we recycle in the country. They do so in very difficult collection conditions and in short collection periods. They go around scratching through bins and in landfills, as was shown in the previous presentation. And the reason why this role exists is due to the fact that only 7.5% of South Africans recycle, as mentioned. And the reason why this is so low is due to the following factors: no free residential recycling for all, private collection services requires a fee, and the customer experience isn't that great. There's no fines or rewards from governments if you do or don't recycle. And then lastly, it's just a low priority in our country. So the solution we came up with is an accessible, inclusive, and rewarding recycling service where residents can sign up for a free recycling service. They also get rewarded with Remali, which is our virtual currency, and we integrate the informal waste collectors into our model. So our model focuses on working with waste pickers. We provide them with tricycles, mobile devices, and uniforms through integrating them into the model and then connecting them with the households that sign up for the recycling service. The issue, however, is that they are at the bottom of the food chain. They're getting the least for the recyclables. They're collecting in the most horrible conditions. They're scratching through people's bins just to make a living. So we thought, why are they having to operate like that? How can we use our skill set and our technology to kind of introduce them into our way of doing things?
So they are working from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it's us trying to catch them in between the times that they work and then trying to connect with them there. It takes quite a bit of time over quite a few weeks. Also trying to supply them with food, whether it's food packages or seeing, for example, how we can assist them in their daily collections. And then it's a matter of getting them on board, training them up, getting them known in the communities. Once they go and they knock at the door and ask for their recycling, go pick up the recycling, their name is known, the household welcomes them, they feel like they're part of something, they don't feel rejected anymore, they don't feel like they are pariahs of the community, they feel like they're a part of the community. And that's what we try to bring, that's the value we try to bring to them.
So the day before each collection happens, we send out a reminder to you as a resident saying who will be here between an hour gap. So let's say 12 and 1. We put out your recyclables, and on collection, the guys will then weigh the recyclables. After that, you then receive another notification stating how much you recycled, how much carbon emissions you reduced, and we also reward residents with our virtual currency called Remali. So it allows them to buy vouchers such as airtime, data, or grocery vouchers through our online platform. We're also working on a new model for an offline platform where people can get a QR code and they can connect with spaza shops and redeem the Remali there as well.
It involves the entire community. So it's not just households that are active in recycling. You have spaza shops as well that are benefiting from that. So that's increasing the economic growth in the local community. And yeah, that's something that we are really passionate about, just trying to close as many gaps as possible.
It's a give and take for both sides, actually. We used to throw our bottles in the dirt bin. Yeah, they come along and like we're putting it now in bags and getting something out of it. It's a good thing, it's keeping our community clean, and it's work for people that doesn't have work out there.
So the guys that go into the households, once they then get the recyclables, they will weigh the bag, capture the weight on the phones, and then move on to the next households. Once their load is filled, they'll then go to our decentralized local hub.
Local hub is basically a container that we set up strategically throughout the community. We have a few here in the community. This is one of them. So what happens now is the guys are basically going to be sorting these material by type, and a truck will be coming by at the end of the day to load those up and take those through to the corresponding processing facility.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, not all residents have access to something like a recycling service. And, you know, it's not something that should be a niche service. It should be provided to the masses. So there's three different motivations that residents have, and that we provide when we approach residents. One is the environmentalist, one is the saver, and the other is the giver. The environmentalist recycles with the Regenize, you know, because it's a social norm for them. They need to do good for the environment. The saver, to the saver, we provide the incentive of Remali, and so that really motivates him to want to recycle. And then lastly, there's the giver. For her, we highlight the fact that by donating her recyclables to Regenize, you know, she can do good with her waste and provide assistance to another life. And so again, when it comes to recycling, not everyone is motivated by the same thing, and you need to understand what is important to different people, and, you know, use a different value proposition to different people depending who you're speaking to. Next, once we've presented our solution, we have to onboard them. Residents can sign up with a website. They can sign up via USSD or via a sales rep. And again, we provided a USSD solution to make it really accessible and to really remove any excuse not to recycle. However, for the model we run in the lower income communities, the sales rep onboarding process is quite effective. Once they've signed up, they get a starter kit explaining how to recycle, what not to recycle. They also get a plastic bag and a QR code, which I'll explain shortly. So as I mentioned in the video, they get the reminders, and then after the recycle, they get a report of how much they recycled, how much carbon emissions they reduced, and how much Remali they earned. So getting to Remali, Remali is basically our behavior change tool. As I mentioned in the beginning, only 7.5% of South Africans are recycling. And obviously there needs to be some sort of punishment or incentive to get people to change their behavior. We are not government, so we can't create any policies to enforce people, but we can incentivize them. And that's why we made Remali. Remali is basically, as I mentioned, a reward for recycling. You can think of it as Discovery Miles, but for environmental behavior. I also mentioned that we're busy working on an offline version. Again, in some of the communities we operate in, not everyone has access to data and smartphones. And so we're currently working on this offline version where we're integrating with local shops in the communities, such as spaza shops and various local businesses where people can redeem their Remali using a QR code instead of having to buy on their mobile phones. And Remali at the moment is only focused on recycling. However, moving forward, we want to focus it more on a circular behavior. So people shopping at zero waste stores, taking their reusable containers, their reusable bags when they go shopping, joining community cleanups, and various other sustainable activities will be integrated with Remali. So in terms of impact of our model, for every 6 households that sign up, 3 waste pickers are integrated and equipped, and that diverts 6 tons of recyclables from the landfill and 12.8 tons of carbon emissions, contributing to climate change each month.